UA has so much potential, but we cannot rely on just administrators top down. You are the scholars in training. And in fact, when I say you're in training, you are scholars. And you have just amount to craft the narrative as StratCom does to pretty it up. So let's tell the truth, and as these first thoughts, so we can continue the conversation, but to shape where to go next. And one of the things here, I'm so glad that I threw it out there. And the other things was, I didn't want to just have a like us talking to one another. This is this is all of our campuses. We need to hear it.
So I used a lot of archive material and regional news articles for my project, but I knew that Cleo Thomas was still in Alabama, and I was able to reach out to his law office and go up to Anniston to meet him. Unfortunately, I'm not a videographer, so I recorded an MP3 of the interview, and anybody that would like to hear it, please email me. I'm just editing out, all of the but and he really highlighted to me that to be an advocate and a leader is not necessarily to credit yourself for it, not to accept that the burden of so many other people could potentially be on your shoulders, depending on the position of power that you're in. He is an incredibly humble, wonderful person that I truly hope comes and speaks to the university more often and is recognized by the university. He has achieved a lot and impacted the school in so many different ways as a public figure and through his advocacy, all the way up through the early 2000s when he was a Board of Trustees member. And he also really highlighted how important integrity is and holding true to, holding true to your own set of values, no matter the position that you're in. He discussed specifically why he resigned from the Board of Trustees, which included the hiring of Chancellor Portera in the early 2000s. And he just decided that he could not compromise, on ensuring that campus is an inclusive and diverse space. He also said that it's really not that hard. That was his comment to me. He was like, you just have to go out and do it. I feel is, a very poignant leader for future generations, and I hope that he gives himself that recognition at some point.
Thank you so much. I will be so happy. But you did this, and your papers, I hope that you can get this into like a journal form using another student publication. And while I won't be here, I will definitely help co-edit and write the intro and forward to this. We need our own UA volume. We said that from day one, and we kept on saying, like, why not UA? And you show what? We're going to do UA as our project. find this information that was told that was unfound? Like, you could not find this. What was that process like as you uncovered a lot?
I'll say that this being my second class I took with you, that this semester around going into the archives, like, I felt more prepared. Last semester, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that building existed. So we walked over there and I was like, oh, okay. And then we walked inside and I'm like, oh, okay. Because there's all this information that I feel like as students, as faculty, like, why do we not know? And so I think it just goes into like the whole thing that we're all discussing, is that these narratives are put out there by people who are like above us, and they feel like it is okay to display that. And I think like with each of our projects, even if they're like similar in some areas, they're all so different, it just shows like the information is there, and that while it's difficult to find, it's not impossible.
About this, the burden of looking at these documents, and I think that is something that's been really clear in taking her classes and looking through the archives, is like, not only is it they're purposefully covering things up, where did the missing document of the CW go? Where did it go? But like, it's also this hard thing for people of these communities, like, to look up Black trauma, to look up queer trauma, and so there's this like double feeling of being like, yes, I found it, and then reading horrible stuff people have to say about you. So I think the reason that this research has been buried is because it's the ugly stuff. It's a concerted effort, but also it's the ugly stuff, and like, I think we're getting to a point where we need to start digging all that stuff up and like really evaluating what it's done for us.
And John Dittmer, who wrote the book Local People. And it was about not the big names that we know in civil rights history, but the ordinary people who lived their lives and sacrificed greatly, and often used what they had right in front of them, whether it was baking pies to raise funds for the movement, or enjoying the independence of owning a barbershop that gave you leverage to participate in the movement. And so for me, looking at these stories is, in a way, a strategy that allows for my own sense making related to my own undergraduate experience. I went to a small liberal arts college in the middle of Indiana in the late 90s, and until the week before I graduated, when I ran across a yearbook, the other African American students in my cohort thought we were the first on campus. So that says something kind of bad progress-wise, but it also was a sense-making moment. Aha, these administrators were interacting with us as if we were in the 70s. And so learning that just kind of helped me determine that I would look for and tell the stories of local people, because heroes are all around us. Some of us are them, and we know them. And so those stories need to be preserved.
Starting with race, myths, and the Black Campus Revolution. Our second panel looked at the diversifying of the curriculum, scholarships, and Greek life, but also campus life with the AAA Cultural Center, that ironically is a parking lot. I think that says a lot. And our last panel, what happens with organizations and people beyond the first? And we talk about individuals and the organizations that still exist, the people who helped to resist and dismantle and carve out a space for our current campus community to feel at home in those safe spaces. So one of the things, as I emphasized at the beginning, these are the opening thoughts to, I think, a larger conversation. It's hopefully the research will continue beyond just today of the panelists, and I'm looking forward to this volume. We're going to make sure this happens.
I would say going into the archives, the most interesting thing for me was definitely relating it, just being able to really see the effects of the long history of these events on campus. being able to make direct connections or see, connections mirrored in the archives to what we experience now or have experienced over the past decade on campus, I think is incredibly interesting. And, going into the archives was definitely difficult because it was obvious that you weren't going to find something someone wanted you to find. It hasn't been published online yet.
You did this work, you became historians because of me. You can go back to your normal research, but at least I know you can do history. But lastly, that being said, there's so much work that can be done in the archives from slavery to 2022. These are hundreds, if not more, senior theses, master's theses, and dissertations. We need more work, more research, more trouble in the archive and getting around this myth of silences and absences. And also see people, the diversity of this campus, from African Americans in a long history to Native Americans who we don't talk about the land that we're on, to their presence today, to the current marginalized communities, but also to the power structures that have been able to adapt, from defending slavery to defending Jim Crow white supremacy to our current iterations of racial power today. That's adaptation, not change. But we need to be those change makers, those pebbles and thorns to keep on fighting and build on the history of resiliency, but also joy and excellence, and not just one of trauma. Thank you so much for coming. And for all my panelists, I'm going to take a picture of you, and then also all last remaining people. So I want to give everyone who presented a round of applause.